A break, a pivot, a pass, a shot, Hail Mary. When you enter that arena or court, you're not holding the ball anymore. You got the world in your hands and an entire audience of people waiting for you to shoot or touchdown. You slammed the ball down, but unfortunately, you didn't score because the ball didn't make it to the end zone, but instead, you just victory posed yourself an all-inclusive ticket to Barnum and Bailey's circus. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Top 5 Central. Put on your clown noses. Here are 15 athletes that got a little too carried away and clowned themselves. But let's not celebrate too early. Apparently, only 12% of you guys watching are subscribed to the channel. Sheesh. And if you watch every spot on this list, you guys can do your own little victory dances from the comfort of your homes. Number 15. American football players' college years can either make or break their potential career. In the case of Utah's Kalen Clay, he made a massive error in a game against Oregon, which did some major damage to him in the eyes of the scouts. All right, did you catch that? So he made that incredible play by getting to a perfect position for a pass downfield after completing the catch. And he even got right up against the end zone before...
Kalen Clay let go of the ball before he crossed the plane.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, that's gotta hurt for Utah, especially Clay.
Yeah, you really dropped the ball on this one, huh?
Now, sadly, they went on to lose this game, and this mistake had further consequences for him, as he wasn't really able to find footing in professional football after the fumble. I feel like this goes without saying, but you should really save the showboating for after the points are up on the board. Number 14. When you're playing for a championship, you've got to treat each second with care to make sure you don't slip up. Unfortunately for the boys at Burrillville High, they weren't keeping their eyes on the ball and suffered massively for celebrating prematurely.
The jumper, Broncos up 59-58. Last chance for Charo, 4 seconds left. The ball is picked off by Dominic Esposito. He throws the ball high into the air. Burrillville thinks they've won, not so fast. Nathan Morin of Charo actually caught the ball, called timeout with time still on the clock. Meanwhile, Burrillville thinks they've won. They're dogpiling, but you can see the refs get together, confirm, still 1 second left. Jacob Beauregard makes the pass of his lifetime to Tom Longaluco at the rim. Can you believe it?
Instead of keeping hold of the ball and running out of the clock, the kid just throws the ball high into the air for an early celebration. But this is where it all goes downhill. Unfortunately, he wasn't paying attention to the remaining time or the fact that his coach had called the timeout. I can't really blame them for getting hyped up, but I can imagine that it made a much more frustrating realization. And good on the other team for playing so well inside of those last seconds. They played it like every moment counted, which is more than I can say about Burrillville, who essentially tossed the game into the air. Number 13. Whenever you take the lead, don't think about who's behind you or how you're going to celebrate. Just focus on crossing that finish line and be ready for anything that might come your way. These were some of the guiding words my coach gave me before every single race, and let me tell you, this guy definitely could have used that guidance here. All was looking well for Oregon runner Tanguy Pipule when he had a pretty reasonable lead on his competition. So rather than focus on the task at hand, he tried to get the crowd involved in his performance before crossing the finish line. Little did he know, this would be the first and the last time that he would make this mistake. You know, you hate to see it, but at least you can take an experience like this and learn from it. Number 12. Now, professional tennis matches will typically contain rallies, which are basically the players taking shots back and forth at each other until one scores a point. Between Francis Tiafoe and his opponent here, they put on quite an exciting show for the fans in attendance. So they continually placed the ball in hard-to-save spots for each other for quite some time until Francis hit a nearly unsavable shot. And of course, with the nature of this video, you can imagine it wasn't actually the last hit in the volley. Tiafoe definitely let off the gas a little early, but it's hard to blame the guy, especially considering he was probably just excited to rest up after injuring his foot earlier in the same tournament. Number 11. Life can sometimes be like riding a bicycle. You pedal and pedal on until you reach your destination. Now, in the case of Adam Tuawalik, he might have gotten a little lost along the way towards his path to the victory. After racing a 50-plus minute long race, he saw the finish line right on the horizon, so he decided to start celebrating. In all fairness, he was close to the finish line, but it would have taken another lap of racing for him to actually cross it and win. If he had even just looked up to any of the fans signaling and yelling to him that there was one lap to to go, he probably would have been fine. But the guy who passed him, Eli Iserbyt, went on to win the championship with Adam following behind him to get the silver medal. Had Toupalik kept his eyes on the prize, those roles would have likely been reversed. Number 10. The Winter Olympics is easily one of the most intense competitions, with some of the strongest athletes in the world striving for the gold to prove that they're simply the best. So as you can imagine, most of these competitors come with only one goal in mind: to keep their eyes glued to the prize. For Lindsey Jacobellis, she might have come with that goal in mind, but that train of thought may have been derailed when she decided to go for this.
Like I said, all she wanted was the whole shot, and she could just run with it.
Exactly.
Jacobellis goes down! Jacobellis goes down! A shocker on the home stretch.
Now, I'm not a coach myself or anything, but I doubt that anyone would have recommended that she go for this trick when racing for a gold medal. Now, she still did receive a silver medal, which is a huge achievement, but I'm sure it's more bittersweet than anything, just considering how close she was to the goal. Number 9. Being a goalkeeper is arguably the most important and also the most terrifying position to play in soccer. When you save a shot, it can lead to some amazing moments. But as the saying goes, never take your eye off the ball. I guess this goalkeeper never heard that saying, considering, well, to be fair, that was a pretty insane save, but I'm just confused as to why he'd run out of the goal in the first place. I mean, at least this didn't seem to be a crazy important game or anything, so it's probably better to learn a lesson like this in a low-stakes environment. Number 8. So it's one thing to celebrate early if you think you've won the game or ran down the clock, but it's another thing altogether to straight up taunt the opposing team you think you've beaten. Going into the game, the Swedish team in yellow needed to win by 3 goals over France, but it is a pretty tall mountain to climb. So when time was running near the 87-minute mark and Sweden was leading 3-0, it's no surprise that after Levin Kurzawa scores, he does this.
Via svensk spelare. Och här då, det är mål för Frankrike. Det är reducerat till 3-1. Och det är Cujavante som får göra mål till slut. Den offensive ytterbacken.
Like I said before, it's easy to imagine celebrating after hitting a shot like that, but this taunt seems to just fire the other team up for the remaining minutes. And with that goal, Sweden went on to win the match, even posting a celebratory group selfie, mocking Kurzawa the same way he mocked them. And that is some instant karma if I've ever seen it. Number 7. In softball, you really need solid team coordination to secure outs and ultimately win the game. And when you get distracted in this sport, it can spell disaster for the entire match. With that in mind, it's pretty easy for one player to get caught up in a moment of victory, but when your whole team does it, you're just asking for trouble. And that's exactly what happened to the softball players of Wiley High when they competed against McKinney North High in the district championship game. By this point, there was only one recorded out, but the ladies from Wiley had counted an extra and celebrated just a bit too early. This huge mistake let McKinney High pick up the necessary points they needed to win the game, essentially stealing the win just because of a careless team. Number 6. Huge moments in sports are something we all like to celebrate with our friends and family. So when this Brazilian thought he scored a potentially game-winning goal, he ran straight to his wife. He did this rather than paying attention to the ref, which was a pretty big mistake considering they penalized him for offsides during the shot. But funnily enough, it was an even worse error by the ref here because he wasn't technically offsides. He was actually advancing as the ball was crossed to him, making this a clean and clear goal. Now, naturally, a human error does happen, but this footballer really should have known better than to run off the field before the point was on the board. Number 5. There have been dozens of phenomenal catches in baseball history, and Masen Hibbler could have had one of the best among them all, if only he had waited just a bit longer to celebrate. To make matters worse, this happened during a regional championship. So he gets up into the stands and makes an insane catch only to throw it out of his glove in a moment of excitement. According to the ref's ruling, the ball left his glove and was not considered a voluntary release, making it a dropped ball. Seems like kind of a crazy rule to me since he obviously caught the ball. Thankfully for his team, they still edged out a win here, 3-2, but with 2 outs on the board, this catch could have sealed the deal if he came down with it in hand. Number 4. Karma. it eventually comes back to bite us all at one point or another. But for Colombian speed skater Alex Cujavante, it could not have come at a worse time. When racing in the World Skating Championship, Alex was looking to be the clear winner after pushing the pack leader around the 200-meter mark, and he had a victory in hand until, I know I keep saying it, but you've really got to give it your all until the end, because you really never know what's going to happen in those last few seconds. As a small comfort for the Colombian, he was disqualified for his push earlier in the race, but even his visual victory was taken in this moment of premature celebration. Number 3, it's never over until that buzzer sounds, and by now, you'd think people would understand that, especially if you're complaining in your league's championship game. During the NLB Finals, the team in white takes the ball to the defending team's side before scoring and leaving less than a second on the clock. They instantly go into an all-out celebration on their end of the court, rather than keeping focused until the sound of the buzzer. And I'm sure you know what happens next. Now, my favorite part about this clip is how shocked the coach is. He was 100% certain that they had won the championship until that shot was thrown. Thankfully for these guys, they weren't the first team to throw a game like this, nor will they be the last. Number 2, penalty kicks are some of the hardest saves for a goalie to make, with the average save rate being less than 20%. So when this shot smashed into the crossbar, the goalie ran out in pure celebration. Unfortunately for him, it was a pretty huge mistake. Imagine being this guy, thinking you got a huge save and running around all hyped up, only to realize the ball was still going right into the net. And you can tell that after the fact, he wasn't exactly the happiest with conceding that goal. I can't say I really blame him though. He definitely knows he shouldn't have left the net open like that. Number 1. Beating the buzzer is probably the most exciting way to win a game of basketball. They're like these suspended moments in time where the entire game comes down to either going in or bouncing off the rim. They're also something you should always be thinking of in a tight game when the clock's ticking closer and closer to 0. But when Ohio State tied up the score with Penn State in the last few seconds of the match, they kinda lost sight of that. Now, these players were on an absolute roller coaster of emotions, from sinking that three-pointer to having Penn State score fire right back with one of their own. I mean, they definitely should have played harder coverage to make sure they would get to overtime, but unfortunately for them, celebrating too early cost them the game. Regardless though, a valuable experience like this can't really be taught. It needs to be lived. So I don't know. Better luck next time, guys. This has been Sam from Top 5 Central. These are 15 athletes who celebrated too early. There's a video on screen right now, and I will see you guys over there. I'm gonna hit my celebratory dance now. If you can guess what it is, you get a free clown nose. All right, no, but seriously though, you should subscribe.